I've been having a lot of fun with Pragmata. Not in the sense of it's being accessible, because believe me, it's not really as accessible as we would hope as a disabled community. But I've been obsessed with analyzing the game design of the combat/hacking mechanic. And I really need to talk about it. So let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Steve Saylor. I'm blind, and if you're wondering how I can play video games if I'm blind, or know what I can see when I'm playing video games if I'm blind, take a look at the video here or click the link in the description down below. Pragmata has been out for a little bit, and the reviews have been pretty good. Really great for me because I have a fantasy critic league that has Pragmata on it, and it definitely scored well for me. And I didn't get access to it for review, but I've been playing it since it came out because I did get a code from Capcom. Thank you to Capcom. And I started to look at the accessibility in there. I was a bit worried about this game not having any accessibility in there, because when I saw the previews or the trailers and it's showing off the combat/hacking mechanic, I immediately thought, oh, this is going to be terrible for cognitive accessibility, because it's just, you're focusing on two things at once. You're focusing on gunplay plus hacking. And how are you able to do that in a way that makes it fun and playable to the player? And I will honestly say, it wasn't until I got my hands on the sticks with it that I think I kind of understand what they're doing with this. And it's really good game design. And here's the thing, really good game design is also good accessible design. Now again, like I said, it's not perfect. I'll even show you the settings here. There's not a lot of settings that are specifically for accessibility, because if I kind of take a look at what we have, you have some controls you can set to toggle and hold, which I will get to in a minute. You can remap some of the controls. There is an aim assist, but you don't really have any other control for it other than just to turn it on or off. You can change the sensitivity of mouse and keyboard, or mouse and controller as well. You can change the camera distance to have sort of an FOV effect where you can have like a near, standard, or far, which definitely kind of helps. And again, you can change the subtitle size, speaker name. You could change subtitle color. You could turn on closed captioning, which is something that that Capcom games has been adding for quite a bit now. Actually, since I noticed in Resident Evil 4, you can add closed captioning for sound effects, which is great for deaf and hard hearing players. And then the only accessibility settings that they have is, if I can skip to it, here we go, is literally just these three options. It's just a visual accessibility preset, an audio accessibility preset, and a motion sickness preset. If you notice, there's not a lot of settings in either or that it will turn on in the settings. So on the surface, this isn't really like accessible to a lot of players. You have there's no screen reader, there's no navigational assistance. The HUD size is actually pretty decent for low vision, but I imagine that's probably because they designed it to also be on the Nintendo Switch 2, which is a smaller screen size. There are some like remapping controls, and it seems like these controls are simple enough that you're able to play. And again, that has the toggles and holds. So it has the absolute basic form of accessibility. But I think that if you look at the game design of the combat, there is something there that actually does make it accessible without necessarily them designing it for accessibility in mind, which goes to the adage of, like I said, good game design is accessible design. So let's take a look at the combat here. So you have this character, her name is Diana, and you can see her here on the back of your character, which is Hugh, and she is your AI character. Her name is Diana, and she basically is your hacking. She is an AI that can hack into the robots that you find on this base on the moon, and you as Hugh, as the human player, basically like you run the combat. So you are the one that's shooting the AI or the robots. You have all the guns, and she has all the hacking magic, basically abilities. And when you look at the hacking grid here, I pause it for a second, so you can see that there is a hacking grid, and there are definitely some squares that you have to be able to hit to be able to do extra damage. They are in blue, but they have a symbol in them, and there are also some that are in yellow that also have a symbol. So they do help for actually color blindness as well. So they accommodated for that. So it's not just sort of based on color alone. So that's also accessibility. But how do you interface, or how do you navigate the hacking grid when you're in this mode? Now, they do this ingenious thing where instead of using the right thumbstick or the D-pad that's normally on a controller, you actually use the face buttons. So the A, B, X, Y, or the cross, triangle, square, circle on the PlayStation, it's actually kind of ingenious. So they use the face buttons as your up, down, left, right buttons, which allows you to be able to not have to kind of contort your hand in order to be able to interface with this hacking grid. And you can still use the camera and also the left-handed, or basically you can still use the thumbstick controls in order to be able to move around. You can do it in any way. There's no wrong way to be able to reach the green circle in the center. You can the only thing you can't do is you can't overlap your path. So it's kind of like Snake in that way. But they don't give you a penalty if you hit the wrong square as you're trying to navigate, which is great. And then you can be able to once you actually do that hack, it actually kind of takes down a bit of their damage, and you can actually be able to shoot them and do even more damage with your gun. And one thing too that that I noticed when you're playing is that when you're using the hacking grid and the enemy is just too close and you have to exit hacking in order to be able to run away, what I love is that it leaves off exactly where you were when you're hacking, so that you can go back to it later and then you don't have to start all over again, which again is just an ingenious way to do this hacking, so that way it's not as cognitive overload as you would think on playing on the surface. Now I do notice is I was trying to find a way to figure out whether or not that the game kind of slows down when you're hacking to basically so that it can give you a little extra time. But I find that actually I think the enemies are purposely slow so that you can be able to get these hacks off. Now, it basically is not perfect because I will admit, I'm playing this on a casual difficulty, so the enemies are not as strong or hit as hard as they would on the normal difficulty. But I find that they do move slower enough that still gives you enough time to be able to do a hack, but then also be able to get away in enough time if you need to. And then again, with the added ability that it saves that hack whenever you go back to it, it just kind of helps with that extra bit of giving you extra bit of time to be able to get off that hack perfectly so that you can do more damage, which I find is just a really, really smart way to do it. Now, is it fully accessible to do it this way? No, it's not. Honestly, I think that I would have loved to seen the game actually slow down completely, have a game speed that you can be able to set to be able to slow down the game even further, or even pause the game completely when you're in hacking mode. So that way there's no pressure of having to be able to hit that hack at the specific time so that you don't have the enemies coming at you and be able to do damage. But I think that it honestly is a pretty interesting way to remove the cognitive load that sometimes that just on the surface what this mechanic would be. Now also there are other mechanics that get added in that that you have to accommodate for, extra challenges for it. So in this particular case, there is this sort of big baby sort of mini boss, and they have these shields that essentially that are in front of their face or on their body that will block out areas on the hacking grid so that it prevents Diana from actually hacking and doing damage. So you actually have to shoot those spots on the body in order to be able to remove those blocks on the hacking grid. So there is a bit of challenge in there, a little bit of a puzzle solving with that you have to kind of accommodate for, and it definitely comes into play in the big boss battles. This is one of the boss battles that I got. This is relatively about 3 hours into the game, so it's not a really huge spoiler, but you'll find that essentially at some point, I kind of skip ahead, this boss does have those shielded points that basically prevent you from hacking, and it took me a while to be able to figure out how to be able to take them out, because you can get rid of the front two pretty easily, but the top two on its back is hard to do, and it took me a while to find out that it actually has climbable surfaces or like basically elevators that take you up to a higher place so that you can be able to shoot them. Like you can actually shoot those places so that you can get off a better hack. But I will admit, there are definitely times that I did find this challenging. This is not necessarily the most accessible way to do it. And there's also weapons that do help a little bit too, that you have to unlock later on, which is not always the best case scenario. There are weapons that essentially that allows you to slow down or even freeze an enemy, or even give a decoy, so that way you have a little bit extra time. So the more weapons you can be able to collect and the more weapons you can upgrade does help you in a way to either slow down an enemy, freeze an enemy, or distract an enemy so that you can get more of these hacks off. And I think that that is also good game design, because it allows the game to be able to give you the tools that you need so that you can still, so the challenge is still there, but you still you still feel like that there is progression and that there still is help as you play. Now, again, is this the most accessible way to go about this? No, because I think cognitively it still can be a massive load, and for cognitive accessibility, that it would be better, again, if it was allowed to be able to slow down time completely or freeze the game or pause the game completely while you're in hacking mode. That would be great. I think that could really even help a lot of disabled players and filled out that spectrum of for disabled players. But I think that Capcom had a really cool idea and really did try to make this as approachable as possible to as many players as possible. And that does include disabled players. And you can see that there is a lot of that throughout the game, because it's a very large interface, which again could be because they designed it for also to play on the Switch 2, and the Switch 2 basically has a smaller screen, and so they designed the default interface to fit on that screen and be playable that way, which is great. And I think that that's a great way to go about it. But again, it's because they're using good game design expertise and making it as accessible as possible basically as a result. And I think this is great. I've been having an absolute blast with this game. I will admit, I wish it was more accessible, but I think that this is something that I would really, really love to be able to see Capcom improve upon this, whether in a sequel or in updates that could basically add more accessibility to this game, and going forward. Because I think that this is also, like, honestly, an MO that I'm seeing from Capcom lately is that they are trying to add accessibility into their games and into their franchises. They are pushing for more accessibility. I've seen that in the Resident Evil franchise. I've seen that in Monster Hunter franchise. And now we're seeing it in brand new IPs like Pragmata. And I hope to see this build of accessibility over time, and also hopefully get more consultants in there early enough that they're able to design games with disabled players in mind, so that it can augment that good game design that they have just gotten really good at over the past several years. And I don't think that that's not necessarily like an accident either. I think that they have been we've noticed it. Capcom has been making so many banger after banger games over the past several years, and if you notice, they've been slowly improving their accessibility over time as well. There's no way that right now that there's a Capcom game that is fully accessible to disabled players. I wish that was the case, but you see the progress over time. I just hope that soon they can be able to have someone or a team of people in the production design phase or in the pre-production phase to be able to help include disability and include proper accessibility into these games, so that way more disabled players can be able to enjoy these great games that Capcom has been making. So that's my thoughts. I'm not going to give it a score, because I just wanted to talk about the combat of this game, because I don't necessarily recommend it fully for accessibility, but if it's something that might interest you, or something that this might be a game that you could want to be able to play, then I definitely recommend this as a game. But I've been having a blast. I've been enjoying it, and I'm gonna keep playing it. I think I'm gonna keep playing it. So I actually want to go play it right now with even just talking about it, which is awesome. So anyway, if you like this video, thank you so much. I really appreciate it if you hit the like button. Also, I would appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button so you can be able to see more of my videos. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.